Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
Hey, we are so excited to have you with us for this episode. This episode is with Marcus Aurelius Anderson, who transformed a life-threatening paralysis into a source of strength. Discover how to embrace adversity as a pivotal point in your mindfulness journey, turning your toughest challenges into your greatest assets. Marcus's story is a powerful reminder that that darkest moment can lead to the most illuminating insight. Don't miss this compact dose of inspiration for anyone facing obstacles. Also, this episode is sponsored by longtime listener and fan, Minnehaha Medical Device Marketing. If you need medical device marketing help to accelerate sales, contact Brian. Go to minnehahaconsulting.com. That's MINNEHAHA consulting.com. Thank you, Brian, for your support. If you haven't tuned into our show before, this is how we kick it off. We have an opening practice at the beginning to get us grounded, to get you guys as our audience grounded, and to really just kind of set the tone for the show. And then we wrap up the show with the same kind of a closing practice. So I will lead this opening practice. Go ahead and get into a comfortable and safe position, whatever that may look like and feel for you. And let's do exactly what we discussed, that our New Year's, or rather new month resolution is focusing on the breath, doing 5 very intentional breaths, counting in and out for 5. So go ahead and begin by exhaling all your breath. Empty, empty, empty. Deep breath in for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and out. 4, 3, 2, 1. In for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. In for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 more. In for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one together. In for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and out for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And now go ahead, bring some micro movements back into the body, maybe moving your arms around your shoulders, wiggling your fingers, toes, neck. Actually, the new month resolution is more than that. It's not just 5 breaths, it's 5 minutes of that. Just a quick correction on my part. All right, now let's get into this show. Again, Marcus, so honored to have you here. I'll turn it over to Will to ask the first question, and then we're just going to pepper you with questions throughout, brother.
Yeah, I don't know where to start. There's so, I mean, your book, Marcus. Thank you. I mean, it's I was posting today on LinkedIn, and I've read dozens of personal development books over the last like 20 some years, and your book, it just really helped me to just understand, like I said earlier, some weaknesses in my game, and it's just written so beautifully and so inspiring, and I could see, so much of the work that you had put into this book, but also from your own, from studying so many different people and then putting it into practice as well as writing this book. And so thank you for so much for putting this book out there, and anybody that's listening, it's like, I really think this should be on everyone's shelf. Like it really just brings home so much of the things that might have been kind of loose ends in what I'm and where I was. I don't know where to start, John. Why don't you ask the first question?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do that.
Yeah. You're kind of awestruck or starstruck here.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of in some way. I don't know. It's like weird. It's like, what the fuck? I know.
I love you, brother. I love you.
Real quick, yeah. Will, you listened to the Audible and you read the book, or what was?
I listened to the Audible and actually ordered the book. It's coming in tomorrow, and I'm going to order a few more copies because I have some birthdays, that awesome. I have like some students that I work with one-on-one, and I definitely want to get it in the hands of my students. And I definitely have a nephew that's a 22-year-old Marine right now. I definitely want to get into his hands as well. I mean, so, and I personally want the book because there's some really great exercises in there, great questions in there. And I take time every day to, to journal and to, to kind of tap into the inside. A great way to start my day, or one thing that I have found to start my day, and to be able to, write out these questions or write with these questions and help them, wake up more of that, the inspiration that's within them is going to just be, I know, a huge help. And that's why I'm also just going to get like a physical copy, but also just be listening to it. Cause I traveled around the city and subways and stuff. And I just like having some really great information sometimes that I can just, tap into. And that's exactly what your book has done. So thanks for all that, for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the first question, a lot of the time when we face adversity, we personally feel that we have it worse than anyone else in this time, anyone else in history. And that particular stress we were experiencing, again, we feel that it's the hardest thing we personally will ever endure. In the book, you state the toughest parts of our lives are not the hardships that we are enduring right now. The hardest part of our lives is when we are no longer able to do these things, when we no longer possess the ability to do these difficulties. Now, with that in mind, how would you define adversity? And then how would you further take it into how we can use it for personal development?
Absolutely. Those are great questions. If anybody's a fan of books, there's this gentleman named Stephen Press.
Will's reading that right now.
Yeah. So
there it is.
I had the honor of having him on my show.
Nice.
His book to me was transformational because I read it even before I was in the military. And he talks about this entity that he calls resistance. He has a capital R in it, and you've read the book, so you understand where I'm going. But he said that resistance is anything that is stopping you from improvement, from attaining excellence, even from beginning those things. So procrastination, lack of motivation, lack of discipline, these are all within that. And this man has written, he was an abject failure, he called himself, for 27 years before his first book was published in his 50s, The Legend of Bagger Vance. So one, his story informs us that as long as you don't stop, you will always be better. You can always perfect your craft. You can always have a better voice in what you're doing. To me, lying in that bed, I ruptured a disc in my neck. I was paralyzed from the neck down. And I went through the 5 stages. I went through denial first because we're in the military and we're invincible and we're warriors. And I can, I flatlined on the table twice. So when the surgeon says you overcame death, so in my mind, there's that arrogance. I'm like, well, I can just walk this off if I overcame this whole death thing. But it was much more real than that. The second part is anger. Third part is bargaining. Fourth part is genuine depression. And then the fifth part is acceptance. And we all go through it. These are the stages of acceptance when it comes to any kind of difficulty. Having said that, I knew lying in that bed that what I was facing was much more than just resistance. It was this physical enemy. It was an adversary. And the physical manifestation of an adversary is adversity, in my opinion, because this was something that was trying to take my life, but more importantly, it was trying to take my will, my desire to live, my dreams, my ambitions, my intentions, my thoughts, my soul. Everything that I thought was important was ripped away. Yeah. So when you're put in that place and you have no other choice, you start to figure out quickly what is important and what is not. So for me, adversity is anything that physically threatens us, forcing us to level up, forcing us to get stronger. So for some people, it is financial ruin in 2020. For some people, it's a cancer diagnosis. For some people, it's the death of a loved one. It's a car accident. Physical injury very quickly shows us the importance of our health. As I alluded to in what you read there, John, it's very easy. They say that you don't know what you got till it's gone, but that's not true. You know exactly what you have. You just assume that you will always have it. And that is not the case. Safety is illusion. We've seen in the last few years that things can turn on a dime. Right. So
Okay.
understanding that and having this omnipresence of adversity being around us, it shouldn't scare us, but it should very much keep us very realistic in everything that we do. And that gives us a sense of urgency, but more importantly, a sense of prioritizing the right things. I mentioned in the book, if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority.
Right.
And frankly, in today's life, we get really good at bullshit that does not serve us, that is not even worthy of that attention. So why are we wasting time, energy, intensity on these things if they're not worthy of that sort of investment?
Yeah, and Will, if you would, I'm just going to jump in with the next
No,
question,
yeah.
because that's further down in our kind of line of questioning. We're here to talk about adversity, but in your book, in addition to adversity, you talk about distractions, and you have a line in there, and I love this line: "Time is finite, but distraction is infinite." And you talk about two examples of distraction, and this is just two of many, obviously, but Netflix and social media. Those are two examples. And with those distractions, you mention the formula for purpose. And I love this. The formula for purpose is priorities minus distractions equals purpose. So with that purpose formula in mind, why do we still have these distractions? Why do we still use them? Why should we use them less? And then how do we get out of the habit of using them so much?
Yeah, we as human beings, we want the easy path. That's the way we've been designed, because our ancestors for thousands of years have found that if we can take the easy path, find the calorically dense food, find the really compelling, titillating thing to keep us occupied, we get the most bang for our buck that way because we are efficient. But that's not the way that we should be doing things. In society right now, as we live, we have the most technology, the most information, the most comfort that we've ever had. So technically, we should be going through almost like a cultural revolution again, a philosophical evolution, a spiritual like
A
elevation,
renaissance for sure.
a true renaissance. And yet we are going down these slippery slopes, these paths. Our TikTok, Facebook, whatever it is, and John, you and I talked about this, how that it used to be an insult to say that somebody has the attention span of a goldfish, which is 8 seconds. Today's society, 7 seconds is the norm.
It's crazy.
So if you're trying to be better at anything, if you even read a physical book and you can focus enough and have mindfulness in that moment, this gives you a huge tactical advantage against anybody in any environment and any arena in which you enter from here on out. Whether you're a young person that's in high school, not sure if you want to go to college, or if you're a 50-year-old who quit their job or was downsized or whatever, and now you are forced to really re-examine. These are the things that give us that opportunity. The other thing is, many people are in adversity right now, but they don't feel it. They're under that illusion that they will always have these things that they have. And the adversity that they are in right now is called mediocrity.
Yep.
It has no taste. It has no smell. It's like a fish in water. You cannot even see it. But yet it is everywhere. It is omnipresent. It is inescapable. And when they're stuck in that rut, human beings, we have this misguided notion that preference is what we continually choose, but it's actually what is continually around us. So we've talked about this idea that you are the average of the 5 people around you.
Right.
That's not exactly true. You are the average of the 5 emotions most evoked from the people around you.
There you go. Yeah.
So if they are motivated, if they're inspired, if they're pushing, if they are trying to do great things and help as many people as they can in a very morally and ethical way, so shall you be. But if you're around people that are glorified victims,
There you go.
people who are disempowering themselves, people who are giving up their power, giving it away, don't want the responsibility, so too shall you be. And if that's the case, you cannot be upset about anything that happens to you. In this life, you either choose what you want or somebody else's choose you for you.
Yeah.
And that's never going to be the best choice for you if you're really honest.
Why is, so we kind of alluded to why mediocrity is so, why is it so damaging? Like, because, I feel kind of when I kind of drop into mediocrity, or when I've lived mediocrity, it just has it just really sucks the life out of me. It just really just starts to darken my soul, if you will. so, why is it so damaging? And also, like, why is it also so contagious? Like, just to come back to what you're saying about like the 5 friends, it's like we had someone on the show a while ago and goes, you show me your friends and I'll show you your future. And I like that you kind of add the emotional layer on top, because it's like, if you're around a bunch of depressed victims, like people that are always complaining and wishing that, and waiting for someone, like we said in the beginning, to save them, then what are those conversations going to be like? What are like interactions going to be like? What are the things you're going to be continually doing? So like, could you just go a little deeper into like why mediocrity is so damaging and what is it damaging? And then, kind of get into why I guess it's so contagious would be helpful, please.
And as you were mentioning in the book, I say that misery loves company, but not as much as mediocrity.
Yeah.
So that's where that contagion comes in.
Mm-hmm.
We've all experienced it. You've been in a room, you've had a great day, and then somebody walks in and it just kind of sucks all the energy out. These are the people that try to one up you when it comes to adversity. And you say, hey, it's horrible traffic. There was an accident on the way in. The weather's bad. It was really cold. And they're like, well, let me tell you about my day. And they can't wait to
exactly.
They cannot wait to tell you how bad it is, how bad the relationship, how bad the cholesterol is, how much all these things are. And those are the people that have identified themselves, and they painted themselves into a corner physically, mentally, and intellectually as a victim.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So the 5 people that are around them, the emotions that are continually bombarding them, are continually reinforcing this notion that they have no power, that they are a victim, that things happen to them, not for them, all these things.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they do have a great day, even if something great does happen to them and they try to pull out of that, they're going to have these other 5 people and emotions like banging them back down. It's like, hey, optimist guy, can you keep it down over there? So is it really that good, right? Oh, it must be nice, like those sort of things, right? And
for real.
I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but I'm just trying to be very honest about what that is, because we've all experienced it, whether, especially in leadership capacities, especially in the military, right? Mm-hmm. Monday morning PT is not always the most enthusiastic thing, irrespective of what tier you're in or what branch of the military it is. And the reason why mediocrity is so damaging is because it's invisible. We can't even feel it. And it just slowly chips away at us. In the military, we have the idea that ounces equal pounds. So if I can clip a little bit of aluminum off of this MRE and I get rid of the box, I'm lighter. If it gives me a chance to carry 30 more rounds when I get rid of another pound of stuff that I don't really need, that's the better option. That mediocrity penetrates everything. It saturates us. And once it's gone through that, it goes into beyond our mentality, it goes into our physicality, goes into our preferences of food, again, our activities, the conversations that we have. A lot of times we have this bad habit of having shallow bullshit conversations at work because we're just trying to pass the time. But then that bleeds over into social time, the people that we socialize with. If I have a conversation with my wife or with my 20-year-old stepdaughter, I want to make the most of it. I'm not going to sit here and say, so how about that weather? How was your day?
Right.
There's a lot more that we can get from those things. And that's why I always try to ask questions, because those questions, they give us, once we untether them, there's so many things that can go from there. And the beauty of journaling is when we meditate, we're trying to be present right in the now. When we're thinking about the future, we're thinking out there. But in between those places, there is a big gap. With journaling, it helps us bring stuff from the past that we've been chewing on mentally. And then, as you were saying, as we're writing, things just sort of come out almost like it's being channeled from somewhere else. And it's like, wow, I want to do this. Wow, I really should apply this. And these are the things that have been bouncing around in our mind for a long, 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 long time that we haven't had the courage to face or the audacity to speak. But in writing, we can do both without uttering a word. And that's the power of it. The mediocrity, if you're not careful, it will not just affect you, it'll affect your wife,
everyone,
your coworkers, your leaders, right? The things that we do as leaders are not taught, they are caught. They catch us doing things. If they catch me doing the right thing, great. But if the one time that I'm asking these people to give everything and they see me with my feet kicked up, even if I'm sick, even if I haven't been feeling very well, in their mind, they will always remember that. That will be the standard for them. And as a leader, if I'm trying to get to 100%, it's hard for them to give that much. That's not their job. It's my job to inspire them to do that.
Yeah.
Having said that, if their 100% is now about 75%, and then they see me slacking, it's about 50%. And then when I say, hey,
Right.
why are you not performing? Why are you not hitting the standard? Why are you not applying these ethos? And they say, well, you were sitting on your ass earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why mediocrity is so powerful, and we have to be careful. It seeps out from everyone.
Yeah.
And even at the end result, to your client, to your product, to your service, your customer cannot put their finger on it, but they can absolutely palpate when there's greatness, when there's attention to detail, when there is this intention,
Yeah.
and when there's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it's powerful.
You know, in this show, we're absolutely great. We're greatness right here.
I agree. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't true.
No, I mean,
Thanks.
all kidding aside, you know, again, the book has inspired me. I personally, I mean, in complete transparency for you, Marcus, and for our audience, I've been kind of in a slump for certain things in my life, and I have been working to get out of that slump, out of that rut, out of that mediocrity, because it snuck up on me, right? And I didn't even see it until I kind of took a look in the mirror. I was like, hey, I'm not who I want to be right now.
Yes.
And you talk about in the book how, you know, motivational speakers, motivational videos, they're great for, you know, a short period of time, but the motivation is in us, and we have to find that motivation. For myself, when I was struggling with mediocrity, for you know, our audience who may or may not be in their own rut of some sort, how do they get out of that state of mediocrity? Where do they start?
There are many places, but I'll address that first part. As coaches and leaders, we hear people say things like, "Oh, I'm dragging this person to excellence. They're kicking and screaming against me." You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. But that's not your job. My job is not to bring the horse to water. My job is to remind the horse that it is thirsty, and then to allow it to run in the direction that I'm pointing so that it can do it on its own volition. So that's what we have to do. For so many people, there are two different paths when it comes to getting out of mediocrity. But before anything else happens, we have to acknowledge and be self-aware enough to know that that's what it is. And many times it takes adversity. Many times it takes looking in the mirror. Many times it takes that picture and you're like, I don't look like that. Actually, yeah, you do. Or a breakup, loss of something, again, financial ruin, any of these things. So adversity forces us to strip away all the BS that we've allowed to accumulate and to look very clearly at what's really going on. But for many of us, even that alone is terrifying. So we try to avoid it. And when we avoid adversity, we actually build it up more.
Right. Yeah.
So this is the reality. The longer the wait, the greater the weight.
There you go. Yeah.
The longer we wait to face that adversity, the greater of the weight of the adversity once we face it. And it's not going to get better on its own. It's only going to grow. It never gets better overnight. It always works worse against us. So the way to do it is two different ways. You can attack it with a whole lot of things and multi-pronged approach. So like 75 hard, being in the military, you're thrown into these places. It's like, guess what? You don't have any other choice. And when there's no other choice, the choice is simple. You know, either you wash out or you get injured or you get kicked out. And for us that joined, like that was never an option. We just kept pushing, and that was a goal. But is that sustainable long term? No. So for some people, they need that initially to kick themselves in the ass to get going. But for other people, if they've tried things or if it feels overwhelming, or New Year's resolutions, right? Those are so dangerous because eventually there will be enough years of that happening when there's not enough commitment and follow through to where now that's the last time that person's going to try.
Yeah.
And they just make peace with who they are. And then they build nobility around that. And they justify it and say, I'm big boned, or say that I'm this, or say that I'm that, or I used to be like this, or I used to be like you. You can be whatever you want to be, as long as you are consistent in whatever it is you're choosing over and over again. And adversity will ask you every day, do you still want to do this?
Yeah, I remember that in the book. It's going to always ask you that, and you've got to answer that every day.
Yeah. When you talk about a giant elephant, huge elephant tethered to like a little string, and a little pole that he can, like this massive, like elephants are so big, so beautiful, so strong, so majestic that he can just like pull up and walk away whenever he wants. But in the book you describe, like, because at such a young age, and he's so small and doesn't have the strength yet to break away, break free. He just gives up. And, and then even years later, I mean, elephants live to like 80, and they're massive and huge and so strong. And then their whole life, they're just tethered to that little string, and they keep, just they don't even realize their potential. And also, just like mediocrity, like you talk about, like the weight of it, just like you start to find other, more of that mediocrity around you. So again, like you said, with like the mediocrity loves company, and it's so powerful, mediocrity. And I think it's like, it comes down to so much of, either you're part of the herd, right, or you're leading the pack. And there's a lot of people that are just still just like sheeps, and just following what they're doing or what they're supposed to do, or with the expectations and of their life. And it's really hard to break free. And, you mentioned earlier, like the adversity, it's like, it really comes from the physical. And what I suggest is, if maybe taking that step, like going out for a walk, like what can you do physically in order to kind of shake yourself out of this mediocrity and challenge yourself as well? Because if you challenge yourself, you have the opportunity to change. You get to know yourself in a different way. And that could be definitely a way to step out of that mediocrity and start to understand, or just even tap a little bit, like that potential that rests deep inside of all of us. And once you begin to tap that potential, the light might go on enough that maybe you show up the next day a little bit differently.
And that's that other side of the coin. I was saying there was the deep dive, you jump into the deep end of the pool. The other side is what you're mentioning, which very much makes sense, right? We can't build self-belief without some sort of like, we need evidence. We need to believe it. Yeah. And for some people, it's these little bitty small wins.
Right.
Just getting up and going for a walk, just 5 minutes, just get outside, just get a little bit of sunlight, just breathe. Don't have any headphones in, just be present, have no input in, just be aware of what's going on. Just 5 minutes and then come back.
Right.
And if you can do that 5 times, then what happens, right? And you're like, I'm already out of here. It's kind of a nice day. All of a sudden it turns into 15 minutes, and now all of a sudden it turns into all this different regulation. And every one of our hormonal cascades is attached to that physicality, to what the vitamin D, to the sun, right? So all these things are so imperative if we're aware of them. And once that happens, now we have this little bit of evidence. It's like, you know what, I did put this amount of effort in, but what if I put this amount of effort in? Could I really do that?
Yeah. And
so that consistency is key. We have this illusion, especially with social media, that everybody, if you listen to everybody, they're working 24/7. They are grind. They're hashtag team no sleep. I don't need that. They'll be in that place, right? And they love that hustle porn, is what I've heard it referred to as.
Yeah.
But trying to glorify that, all that does is lionize the fact that they are scared to death. Because if you're working 24/7, you're not doing the right things.
Right.
If you're working the way that you're supposed to, you're not going to have that much time. Again, Stephen Pressfield, 4 hours is the sweet spot max for him. When I interviewed Robert Greene with the 48 Laws of Power, the same thing. He's like, 4 hours is as much as I can do. And I am like mentally spent, is what he says when he's done that. And these are guys that have done it for years. Right. Robert Greene has done Zazen for 45 minutes a day for 13 years straight. Wow. So they have the mental capacity. They know how to handle the voltage. But even those people understand there's a point of diminishing returns. Right. And here's where it's hard, because if we listen to our mind, if we listen to adversity, it will tell us that we've hit a point where we're hitting diminishing returns. But for most of us, we've never even touched it. There's not even a breath of it. We have no idea what it is, because we've never been pushed hard enough. And this is why it's important to have this mentality about adversity fixed well before you need it. Because if you wait until the moment of battle to question yourself in the way that we're doing right now, it's too late. If you're one step behind the battle, you're behind 2 or 3, actually.
Yeah, 100%. I'm so glad that you hit on the grind, hustle porn, right? That's out there. I mean, there's some people who need a kick in the butt, and they need to maybe work harder than they are. But there are a lot of people who are already grinding themselves down into the dirt, and then they see those videos, and then they're like, I'm not working hard enough, and then they grind themselves into that point of diminishing. and even negative returns. And for our audience who's listening and maybe not watching, the book that Marcus and Will both held up at the beginning of this is The War of Art. Not The Art of War, but The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. There's a lot of greatness in that book, and Marcus unpacks a lot of that in his book, The Gift of Adversity. But I'm again glad that you talked about the grind porn, the flip side of that, or the hustle porn. The flip side of that, where people are maybe being too lazy. You say, let me see where I've got this. In the book, you state something to the effect of the easy button. Kind of the get rich quick schemes, the diet pills so you don't have to do the work. These easy buttons are not purchased by people, but they're actually purchased by laziness of people. Now, can you discuss how important it is to not seek out that easy button, but actually seek out the harder thing to do?
No.
And we can talk about it from emotions, but I'll talk to it from like a very real standpoint. As a human being, ask yourself, do I respect something that I achieve easily? Ever? No. I never have. As human beings, we do not respect what we do not have to earn or pay for in some capacity, whether that be money, blood, sweat, tears, time, commitment, consistency. That's what the value comes from. That's what makes it happen. So if somebody, and again, there are tactics, there are ways that we can do things, I understand. But everybody right now, the reason I called the podcast Acta non verba, it's Latin for actions, not words, is because right now everybody knows. Everybody's a member of this group, that group, blah, 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 blah. They have all these steps and they want to learn more and more and more and more, because in that learning, it allows them the chance to procrastinate. Yeah. That's their adversity. Knowledge that is acquired but unutilized is the equivalent of ignorance. Yep. So if you can hear us right now, you already have an idea of what you should be doing next. Probably. And if you don't, that's a pretty good question to step back and say, I want to meditate on this. What could I do next? What would be the courageous decision? If I had no other choice, what would this be? In my book and in the TEDx, I say, if you woke up tomorrow paralyzed from the neck down, what do you wish you would have accomplished with your life? That's a great place to start, because that strips away everything else. Now you're not concerned about other people's opinions. Here's the thing. When you're in a bed paralyzed, you realize that the kind of car that you drive, the amount of money that you have in the bank, the clothes that you wear really don't matter. That money will just be a number on a computer screen or a slip of paper. And no matter how large or prolific it may be, it's not enough to buy you more time nor give you back your physicality once you've lost it. And if all those things are true, then what really is important to you? And you don't need a course. You don't need another podcast. You don't need anything to do that. You can stop what you're listening to right now. I hope you keep listening. You just take that and breathe on it and take 5 minutes and do some parachute breathing, whatever it is, and ask yourself those hard questions, because you'll find that once the answer that we seek is found in the adversity we're currently avoiding right now. Yep. Right now, the answer that you seek is found in the adversity that you are trying to not look at. If it's a relationship, have the conversation. In the military, we say, get in the room. When I'm trying to breach that room, I don't care if I fall down, just get in. Get there. Now we can begin. It's not going to be perfect. It's always going to be sloppy. That's fine. Just get in. Now the conversation's open. Now we've at least acknowledged that there's an elephant in the room, and now we can begin to do the work. But if we do not do that, if we don't have the courage to do that, our own cowardice will snuff out everything that we could possibly do in our lives on this place called mediocrity.
Yeah. Speaking about getting in the room, you talk about, being the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room, right? which I love. Yeah. And then, we've done episodes on the growth mindset and the beginner's mindset. And in the book, you call it kind of the white belt mentality and the importance of the white belt mentality. Can you kind of unpack that for our audience and explain what you mean by that and why it's so important?
Yeah, it's so powerful. I've done martial arts my entire life. I've had the privilege of learning from some phenomenal martial artists. Guru Dana Nosanto is Bruce Lee's protege, and I'm an instructor under him. So learning from him, seeing him live these ethos in his mind, and that man has literally learned more about martial arts and forgotten than I will ever learn in my lifetime, right? Like, he is incredible. And he has zero ego. He's about 85. He's about this tall, and he just wants to learn. Not that he feels that he has to learn how to defend himself. He can definitely do that. But he wants to see, what does this person have that maybe I don't? What is another way for me to look at that, right? In the martial arts, this is something Guru told me. He says, Marcus, if I teach you a punch, you learn one punch. If I teach you a concept, I teach you 1,000 punches. So this is why it's so important to have that white belt mentality. Step back, empty your cup, and say, listen, I'm going to imagine. And the best way to do that, even if I have all these different black belts and all these different certifications, if I go to a martial art that I've never done before, I can take my ego aside. I can put on a white belt and say, teach me. I don't have to know. There's no responsibility on my part. I don't have to teach. I don't have to help this other person because I don't know the technique any better than they do. And I can just learn. And without any expectation, without any ego, without any fear, without me saying, well, in my system, we do that. The martial art joke is this. It says, how many martial artists does it take to screw in a light bulb? 3, one to do it, and another one to say, well, in my system, we hold it like this.
Right. Yeah.
Right. So there's so much semantics in that. But the idea is to come back and say, listen, I just want to learn. And when it comes to mastery, like Robert Greene wrote in his book about those 10,000 hours, if we are honest and we are present, which we're talking about mindfulness, so everything that we do can be a mindfulness practice, to going for a walk, taking a shower, brushing your teeth. Any of these things can be mindful if we employ mindfulness. In that place, we can learn skill sets. And now instead of having to have 10,000 hours, we can have 10,000 iterations. And these ideas will bleed over and they will translate into these other skill sets. And that's why it's so important to be able to go into this idea with a beginner's mind. Jocko Willink, right? Yeah. He's very much about humility. If you watch Jocko talking to somebody, he'll put his hand over his mouth. And when I went to his event, the Council of Leaders a few months ago, he does this to remind himself physically to shut up.
Yeah, for real.
And now he's not trying to fix this person. He's not trying to judge what's going on. Yeah. He's trying to do it right now. And he tries to listen to what's going on. That's how we learn. So if you can have that humility, you can learn. As leaders, a lot of times there's this idea that we have to know all the answers. No, we have to find the right people around us that can come up with ideas for us to make the decision on what the best answer may be. And lots of times we're asking them, what do you think? Where am I doing this wrong? If my company fails in 2 years, what happened? And how can we get in front of it now? Because it usually takes 2 years for whatever blindnesses that we have to flesh out in the real world. These are the kind of questions that you have to ask. Yeah. Peter Thiel, right? How do I get to my 10-year goals in 6 months? Again, it doesn't come from learning a bunch more stuff. It's about actually applying what I know, being honest about the results, and then saying, okay, if I'm humble enough to realize that I'm beating my head against the wall, this isn't working, but what else can I do? Step back, take a breath, look around, make a call, right, John? That's what we have to do. And that's where it's very hard, especially if there's a lot of like hustle stuff that you're seeing all the time to grind. It's like the idea is, if I listen to these people, the answer is more. But anything in excess eventually becomes its opposite. Yep. So as leaders, as people, as entrepreneurs, we have to say, what would happen if I could only subtract to answer this? And most of the time, that's what we need. We don't need another $250,000 worth of credit. We don't need an additional CFO. We just need to be able to apply the right questions at the right time and be humble enough with a white belt mentality to say, I don't know. Let's find out together.
Well, Will, I got one more, man. I don't mean to dominate this bit, but
no, you're good. Let's go. We got time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you.
In the book, well, you touched on something there about making a call, right? Making a call. And in the book, you talk about, I forget whether it was your command sergeant major, first sergeant, you talk about him saying, Marcus, what's the one thing that gets more people killed on the battlefield than anything? And you talk about that. And I'm not going to ruin the punchline here. I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about that and why it is so important to do the opposite of that.
Yeah, I'm my squad leader, and that man had seen a lot of combat, and even like high-ranking officers would default to him with a lot of these things. And it's like, yeah, there's only a way that you get that kind of respect, and that's from being in it and experiencing it a lot. So we're doing a shoot house, 24-hour shoot house, live ammunition. And a shoot house is where you're actually clearing rooms. And of course you have targets because you're using live ammo, but within that time, you're going to have sleep deprivation. You're going to have a little bit of food, a little bit of water. So it's about just going through it over and over and over again. And they change the room every time. And if you flag somebody with an automatic weapon, you only have to take your mind off of the focus of this moment once, and other men die. So this understanding that we have to be very intentional about what we're doing is key. But there was one group that hit the door and then they hesitated, and we call the door the fatal funnel, and they were all stacked up. And all it takes is one person with a grenade or an AK-47. They can just sit on one edge of a wall and just kind of shoot in this direction. And the most highly trained men in the world will die because one man hesitated. So Sergeant Reed pulled us to the side and he was like, AJ, and he called me Anderson because I'm Anderson in the Joe because I was his number one Joe. He's like, AJ, you know what kills more men? You know what kills more men in combat than hesitation? Oh, sorry, I blew it. What kills more men in combat than bullets or IEDs is hesitation. And he's lighting his Zippo that he's gone to combat with 1,000 times, and you can smell the camel smoke coming. And he was like, I would rather you be wrong in real time and 100% committed, and then pivot in the heat of battle than wait. Because if you're waiting, the hesitation, again, it kills everything. It kills intention, it kills momentum, it kills the element of surprise, all these things. And right now, people believe, again, in 2020, people had this idea that hesitation makes me safe. It doesn't. It makes you a sitting duck.
Yeah.
Actually going out and taking action is more important, because even in that action, you have the ability to pivot. You have the ability to change. But if I'm not in motion yet, I can't change. I can't see targets of opportunity. I can't move. So when we talk about Octanon Verba, there's so many people that build a business plan, or they have this fitness idea, or they have this plan that they want to do with their family, and they are afraid to take the first step because they're afraid of failing. Right. Listen, people, if you don't go out and take the first step, this plan even has legs to begin with. You have to go out there. You have to try it. And then when you get a different look, you go, oh, that's not what I should be doing. Fine. Pivot. Now move in that direction without hesitation. Because if you're waiting, that hesitation, and what does it do? If we're leading, what do we do now? We're telling everybody else around us, hey, wait, hesitate. That's not what we need. Violence loves speed, and adversity loves hesitation. So don't get caught in those.
Yeah. Well, that's, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes from Einstein, because nothing happens till something changes. Right. Or until something moves. I don't know exactly. I'm pretty sure one of those is the exact quote. Or even like, what I've learned being here in the city, I when I do drive in the city, I have to be proactive. I have to be aggressive, but also be smart, not like aggressive and stupid and like running into people, but really taking my environment, being fully present, and just not hesitating. Because if I hesitate, I'm going to get rear-ended or someone's going to hit me. Yes. And, and it's just, and I think it's when you said, if you do move, you just continually create opportunity. Obviously you want to be smart and focused in your actions when you're pursuing your goals and living more of your life, and be more strategic with your actions, because they're going to create opportunities. But if you're just sitting on the fence, being a spectator in the arena, instead of, you touched on earlier about how incredibly important it is to show up. You have to show up. And in that, when you put yourself in that situation, in that circumstance, or in that opportunity, just by being there, who knows what can happen. But also, let's just go back to that white belt and the beginner's mindset. You kind of touched on some of those characteristics, like humility being one of them, being the student and being that white belt and being in the beginner's mind. What are some other, I'm just speaking to this or asking this question, so because I feel like I know there's a lot of men that I know that never want to admit that they're wrong, always want to seem like that they know everything that's going to happen, or whereas like eating or taking that pill of humility and stepping into the beginner's mindset and being the student, instead of like trying to continually be whatever kind of person and not the student. You really miss out on so many different potential opportunities learn and to gain more skills and then take a more proactive step forward. So what are some of the other characteristics for that you would describe or attribute to that, that beginner's mindset and that white belt?
Yes, the self-mastery is everything, trying to be aware of that. So self-mastery means we're in charge of our emotions. In the book, I say emotions assassinate the truth, right? And we have to have the capacity to recognize that. And here's a good question for that, because this will unpack everything. And you have to be really honest with yourself when you ask this question. So you're experiencing something, whether it be cognitive dissonance, whether it be your ego being bruised, being told that you're wrong, being told that this is not the right idea, not getting what you think should happen. Step back and take a deep breath and ask yourself, where is the physical evidence that this is physically harming me?
Nowhere.
There normally is not. We may feel tightness in our chest from the breathing. We may feel a lot of like internal dialogue that's going on, but there is no actual threat to that. And if there's no physical threat to us, then we can understand it's my ego that's taking the bump on this. Right?
I got to take that in. See if we lost Will there for a second. I got to take that in, every time that I'm with my kids and maybe they do something and that they cause me some anxiety, which causes me the emotions. I kind of fly off the handle, and the truth that I am assassinating through that emotion is that I'm not in any danger. There's no reason to be raising my voice at my kids for, I don't know, spilling a glass of milk or whatever. So it's I love the emotions assassinate the truth, and we got Will back here. Somebody commented in the comments here, Will has fallen off his chair.
That was a powerful statement, Marcus. You knocked him out of his chair, sir. Well done, fella.
Assassinated him. But I'll touch on, talking about assassinating the truth and some of the other emotions that we feel. Something that is for, I think, men particularly, having compassion, and more importantly, or more specifically, self-compassion, how important that is. Can you talk about how important self-compassion is for overcoming adversity, and then not only overcoming the adversity, but taking that adversity and turning it into a gift?
Absolutely. So the internal dialogue is everything, and we have to be aware of the consequences of it. And lots of times we're focused on us. We're focused on me. It's about me. It's on me. What do you think of me? Enough about me. What do you think of me? This is the idea that we have in society. But we have to understand also that the way that we talk to ourselves in our internal dialogue, eventually we will speak to others that are very close to us in the same capacity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if I am constantly kicking myself in the ass and calling myself all these names, and I'm in that elevated state, and I haven't had a lot of sleep, and I haven't had a lot of good food, and I'm stressed out, and then something happens and I lash out at somebody close to me with that dialogue, if somebody else talked to that person that I love in that same manner, it would not be pretty, right?
Kick their ass.
But yet, who is it? It's me. And who controls that? Me. That white belt idea, that's where we have to come to it. From that place, we can actually understand now that even if you don't want to change the internal dialogue because you want to grind or kicking myself in the ass is what I have to do, and if I'm not doing this and I'm failing, that's okay. You can go ahead and believe the lie if you would like, but understand that it will eventually get to people around you. And if that's the case, and you don't want those people to have to bear the burden of the fact that you don't have the guts to face your own adversity, then you will actually have a more altruistic view and say, you know what, I don't want my daughter to have to hear me say something like this. And if that's the case, then I will do the work and step back and say, what is this adversity shining a light on? Where's the chink in my armor? And why the hell am I afraid to look at it?
Right.
What is the harm in me taking a look at what this is? And then more importantly, what is the long-term effect of me continuing down this same cycle of insanity, of mediocrity, having the audacity to be surprised when I don't get something different? It's the definition of insanity. We all know that.
Right.
So understanding that adversity, I say in the TEDx talk, adversity hates you, but it only hates a certain part of you. What part of you? The weak part. It's trying to show you where you're weak. It's trying to show you where you need to build this relationship, where you need to have humility, where you need to have more responsibility financially, where you need to take more accountability for your physicality. All these things. There are five circles I talk about: physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, meaning how we pour into ourselves, and then the financial component. So understanding where the business fits in, understanding where we all come together. There's a lot of people that I coach that, they're monsters in the gym, but can they translate that to financial discipline? Can they translate that to calling their mom, calling their wife, right? How many CEOs do we know that are multimillionaires that can't have a relationship, or the relationship with their wife is a stranger, their kids don't even pay attention to them, and their entire life they were like, I'm doing this for my family. And then when they don't feel like they're getting respect for their family, now what happens?
Yeah.
Now there is no purpose, and now everything is coming unwound because they don't have the audacity, actually the courage, to actually look inside themselves and say, is there a possibility that I'm missing something? What am I doing wrong? And those are the people that need a friend, a coach, somebody that they trust enough that's going to give them the brutal truth. And that's the hard part, and there's ways to deliver that truth, okay? What you hear us talking about, you hear us kind of being like, okay, let's go, let's make this happen, violence of action, all these things. But we're talking about doing it from a place of emotion and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
If I understand how my employee takes this sort of verbiage, I can talk to her. I need to talk to her a certain way. If I'm talking to a guy that's like a go-getter and he's ready to go, I just need to say a little bit of stuff and he's going to run through the wall. But I have to have the capacity to sense what they're doing, the respect to pay attention to them enough to understand who they are, and then the ability to actually deliver the message in a way that is conducive to them, to the mission, to the goal.
I got to come back to, the motivations of so many highly successful people. And you talk about the CEOs that say, hey, I'm doing this for my family. I'm doing this for, put food on the table. But it always comes into my mind. I don't know if you're a Breaking Bad fan. I know you don't watch a whole lot of TV, but there's a scene, in Breaking Bad. He's constantly saying, "Hey, he's doing this to have the money for the family, doing this for the money for the family." And then in one of the last episodes, he's like, "You know what? I didn't do this for the family. I did this for myself. It's my own ego." And I think that's where so many people get wrapped up in that hustle that we talked about before. Is they're not doing it for the right reasons. They're doing it for their own ego. They're doing it so that they can show that they have the nice house, the nice car. They can show all this on social media. They're not doing it for the right reasons. I just want to touch on that. No, not really a question, but you also talked about the 5 areas, right? The 5 areas that you can improve. And I love the fact that you brought in the book, The 5 Rings. I was talking with a group of guys recently. I'm rereading The 5 Rings. And
I just ordered it. Yeah, I just ordered it.
So good.
Yeah.
So good. But they're, the theory of ikigai. And you talk about that in the book. I didn't really have this in my notes, but you talked about the 5 areas. If you could touch on what ikigai is for our audience and how they can use that to overcome adversity or improve themselves.
Absolutely. And the book of 5 Rings, I highly recommend it. I actually do a podcast called Warrior Wisdom on the book of 5 Rings about Musashi and about the 5 Rings, talk about what happens. And I actually come up to it from a place of as a martial artist, studying weapons, studying swordsmanship. And there's a lot of people that have read the book that take the general conceptual ideas like we talked about before, having a concept to give them more techniques, but yet they lose a lot of what Musashi's talking about. Musashi had 61 duels to the death, and he won every single one of them, or we wouldn't be talking about him right now.
Right.
So when he's talking about learn this well, like he repeats that phrase over and over again. He's not talking about quoting it and put it on social. He's talking about do this sword stroke 1,000 times. And when your shoulders are on fire, do it 1,000 more times. He's telling you to embrace adversity and then to see if you can push through it. What does it take? How hard was it? Was it as bad as you thought it would be? Having said that, the ikigai is this notion that there are 4 circles and they all overlap like a Venn diagram. And the idea is we find out what we're good at, what the world needs, what the world will pay for, and then what we enjoy. So when I talk about 5 circles, when I'm talking with somebody, they all overlap in a similar manner. And the overlap of all those areas is who you are as a person. So they can do this weekly, they can do this quarterly, they can do it whenever they need to. I do it with them at least once every 6 months. And I say, do your 5 circles. So they look at their physicality, and that includes working out, but it also includes their food, fasting, choice of food, choice of workouts, variations on that. Then we go into the professional, which usually has money involved with that. We go into the relationships. Then we go into the spiritual. And I don't care if you're religious. I don't care if you just believe that there's some sort of universal law, whatever it is, there's something in that you can tap into. And then the last thing is your own edification, your own teaching of yourself, learning. So what I do is I have them get themselves a score of 1 to 10 in each of these 5 circles, and then say, no bullshit, what do we need to work on? And then we apply 4 principles I talk about in the book. The 3 ones that we apply with that specifically are the 80-20 principle,
Right.
Pareto's principle, and then Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law says that the amount of time that we have, the amount of work that we have will expand to fill that time. So, right. So if we have an hour, take us an hour to do it. If it should only be a 10-minute conversation, we'll probably make it into an hour because that's the deadline that we put out there.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So when I talk about it in the book and I say without a deadline, time means nothing, this is how we apply it. So if you take a single circle and we're talking about physicality and we say, okay, I need to work on my presentation of being mindful, or I need to work on some sort of physicality in that circle. How am I on a scale of 1 to 10 right now? I'm about a 4. Okay. No bullshit. What is the 80-20? What is one thing I can do right now to help me get the most bang for my buck? I could probably do 5 minutes of breathing, like what you guys are talking about. We talked about at the beginning of this conversation. That would be a great place to start. And then having a deadline. When can I start? Can I do it right now? No. When can I do it? I'm done with this appointment at this time. Good. Put it in your calendar. Make it happen now. So once you've done that, you've done the other things, and then we just try to apply Occam's razor. Make it simple. Execution is what we have to have, and complexity is the enemy of execution. So we have to have those things. And people can do that on a piece of paper right now. They can go through and look at those things, and now they apply it. And in the book, on the Audible version at the very end, I actually talk about those things. We take a sphere, we look at it honestly. And the great thing about it, I even have CEOs that they're very, some of them are very meticulous. They'll even do a sheet that shows them the graph. So they do it once every 2 months, and then they go, hey, look at all these things. And what this does is this allows us, what do we talk about? Detachment, right? Step back. If I put it on a piece of paper and start writing it out, now it's not about me. I'm detached and I'm writing about this thing. There's the 5 circles. Okay, here's the physicality, a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah.
I'm about a 4. Okay, what can I do right now?
Mm-hmm.
What's sustainable? What am I likely to do? Where can I apply discipline here? Where can I apply this understanding of my own internal dialogue?
Yeah.
How will this affect my family? Where is the adversity in this? And is it even real? And why am I waiting so long? Why am I allowing hesitation to kill the intention behind this thing?
And by taking that time too, you're opening the back door for the muse to come in. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, wait, I never had that thought before. But because I stepped back, detached, did this objective self-reflection, all of a sudden, boom, something opens up that I didn't even know was even possible.
And it may not even happen then. It may happen later on a walk,
Exactly.
or on a run, or in the shower when you're getting out and you just have that moment of epiphany. So when we meditate, very few times do we have that breakthrough, but it gives us bandwidth to have the capacity to have the breakthrough later on.
Yep.
If anybody's listened to History on Fire with Daniele Bellelli, incredible guy, right? And when I interviewed him, we were talking about martial arts, and he said that in his mind, this place of being enlightened doesn't exist. It's a practice.
Yeah.
So there's days when he does jujitsu and he does incredibly well. And he's like, oh, I'm not doing too bad. He's a black belt, right? And then the next day he goes and he's like, I'm having a hard time doing a simple maneuver against this white belt because he outweighs me by 10 pounds. That shouldn't be the thing. So even he has this white belt mentality. And when we take ourselves out of the equation and realize that it's not about us, we're just trying to be present. I just want to absorb this technique. I just want to feel the energy of this person. I want to sense the intention. That gives us the ability to be not only detached, but now we can find targets of opportunity that we would no longer see normally. And those are the presentations that we are always looking for. And when it happens, it feels almost seamless. And this is the power of having everything in line. When we were talking about the ikigai and everything overlapping, if I say my priority is this, and I look at my actions and they are completely diametrically opposed, then clearly something's not lined up. But the more I can try to align things, and the more I can strip away things that are unnecessary, now when I move forward, everything dovetails into that. This entire conversation dovetails into what you guys work on all the time. It works into everything that I've read about in the book, what I talk about in podcasts, when I speak internationally, when I coach people, when I work on groups, when I go to their companies. All these things are the same, but it's the way that we present it. It's the way that we come at it. It's the angle through which we can see it, the lens of the other person. That's what gives us more opportunities.
Right.
And if I have the white belt mentality, and if I can let go of any kind of arrogance and be humble, man, I can see stuff that I mean, from the mouths of babes. How many times have kids, John, you were mentioning that about kids, right? Like, they are doing mic drops all day if we're willing to pay attention to it.
Yeah, no shit.
Will's been over at my house and he's heard some of the wisdom bombs that my kids drop. I mean, it's incredible. So.
Yeah. Well, they're not attached, right? They're not attached. They're just like one to them. They're so incredible. I mean, they're little Buddhas, right? They're just so incredibly present, and they're just in the moment. But they also have such an attachment to their feelings, and they're so raw, and it's just like they just come out with just absolute brilliance, from the white belt. They're like the ultimate white belt, but they also the ultimate master at the same time. So Marcus, so writing this book, like what were some of the adversity that you were experiencing, and how long did it take you? We'll say that, or answer that question, please. And then how long, or what was the adversity and some of the adversity that maybe you continually began to experience as you're writing the book, and then what were some of the things you did to overcome them? I think would be very helpful for people to understand what it's like. The book is so well done and so well. I can feel so much of the experience that you had in your own life, but also the wisdom that you gained, but not ignorance, right? The wisdom you gained from reading other authors and other sages, and then put it into your life, and then fucking wrote the book. So what was some of the adversity that you kept coming up against as you're writing this book?
So it took me a year and a half to write. Hour and a half.
Wow.
Complete flow state.
You put an hour and a half deadline.
It was amazing. I don't know why people have a hard time.
Chat GPT. That was
exactly. So it took me a year and a half to do it. And when I was injured, I went back to the beginning. I got out. I was 40 pounds overweight, lost a bunch of muscle mass, but I'm finally able to take care of myself. And I'm like, that was my big adversity. Like, getting over it was tough. But then what the hell do I do with my life now? I'm like 40, almost 42 at that point. I can't go back to chiropractic school because I still have neuropathy in my hands and my feet. I really don't want to go back to any of the other things I was doing. So what does this look like? And so I went back to the beginning, which was martial arts and philosophy. I have a buddy that was a martial arts instructor at a school at the time. I was certified already, obviously. He's like, come down, teach a class Tuesday. I was like, well, I don't know and he's like, I don't care, figure it out. And that's what I needed, was that deadline to make me start looking in this direction. And within that path, you learn a lot. Got private students from that. A few of them actually became my first coaching clients because they were saying, I'm getting more information that's functional in my business from you right now in this lesson about the blade than I am about these other executive coaches that we have. And I was like, sure, just write me a check. And then when they wrote me a check, I was like, wow. Okay. One of them had a buddy that was having a speaking event, and I didn't understand how speaking worked. They're like, can you come down and tell your story? I'm like, sure. I get there. There's 200 people. There's a stage. There's a live mic, and there's like lights. I'm like, what the hell's going on? You know who's speaking? They're like, you are, dumbass. I was like, okay. Go up. But all I'm doing is telling my story, right? And I haven't done the TEDx. I haven't written the book yet, but I did 2 or 3 of those. And eventually you're doing Q&A, and there's a woman that's pacing at the back of the room. Older woman, and she wants to talk to me, and everybody's left, and she's like, I want to buy your book. It's like, thank you so much, ma'am. I don't have a book. And she just like reads me the riot act about how irresponsible it is to have this sort of story, this sort of experience.
I'd love it.
And what it was is, so her granddaughter was going through a divorce, right? Going through genuine adversity. And what I had talked about very much resonated with her. And she said, if you had a book, I could give this to her. It could be a blueprint for her to overcome this.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I don't want to write a book. This is going to be so hard. And again, the people that I read, like I tried to read the best, again, Stephen Prisfield and Robert Greene were the people that inspire me the most. And to see what they write, it's like a magnum opus.
Yeah.
So you start writing. So I just wrote down 78 like things that came to mind. And I was like, there's no way I can write all that. So I tried to condense it down and then try to find categories for each of them. The bucket for this, bucket for that, bucket for that. Oh, there's a story that reinforms that. So Will, thank you so much for the compliment about writing, because what I see now, and I think Robert Greene kind of created this, and I think Stephen Pressfield created this as well. These are men that lived an incredible amount of life, and they've done a lot of research. And then when Robert Greene talks about the importance of these things, and then says, Machiavelli said this in The Prince, like these are things that people need. But what I found so often is it's very easy for anybody to regurgitate wisdom from somebody else, especially when that person's already digested it for hundreds of years and they've written it down, and now we have like this sage text. But for me, it was like, why don't people write from their own experience? And I'm not saying that you have to have all these experiences. And I've heard somebody, I think Ryan Holiday was talking to an author, and he said, if that story wasn't about you, would you have used this as an example? But everything that I'm doing, I'm just telling my story. So it just made sense. And I got in my own head for a while. And I was like, maybe I should research this. I should research this. And I can do all these things and make these. And I was like, I just need to get this thing done, because once you start writing on something, there is like this ticking time limit of how much attention we can give it. Because I wanted to make it, as I told you, I want to just bleed on the page and make it as honest and real as I can. And if it resonates, great. And if it doesn't, at least I had this done. And that's what I tried to do. And then you go back and you revise, and then you go back and it's difficult. And then you go back and you write for 10 pages and it all looks like shit, but there's one paragraph that's gold. And then you pull that out and you go, yeah. And you pull that out and you go, okay, thank you. And you pull that out and you're like, okay, I'm going to work on that. And then what? You go for a run, you meditate on it.
There you go.
And I'm still teaching martial arts 60 hours a week at that time too. So I'm having to get up early, get it in. And then there's times when I come back and it's like, I'm not in my best state, but I have to click it in now and see what I can do, and just continually show up. I use that analogy. Lao Tzu, the Taoist, he says, you don't build a wall. You lay one brick perfectly, as best as you possibly can, with the best brick and the best attention to detail and the best mastership of what you're doing. And then you try to do it again. And that's all I try to do, is just lay a brick perfectly as much as I could. As a matter of fact, the adversity that I face now is that now that I've gotten like that much notoriety or attention from people, my second book, I've actually gotten in my own head a lot. And I'm like, people seem to like this, or because I've taught about this stuff for years now, right? So I'm trying to give people, these are the things I'm always asked when I go to a keynote, or when I speak at a company, or when I'm teaching them to go through things. So I want to make sure I put that in there. But then I've already told my story. So how much of my story do I leave? How much do I put in? How many other parts do I put in there? And now I'm to the point where I'm like, I'm just going to get it out there the same way. So I'm trying to wind it down now, give it the most condensed stuff that I possibly can. I can give it to somebody and they can apply it. And if it's, I hope it's as good as this book. I hope it's a perfect companion to this book. And if it makes the kind of impact that it has on you two gentlemen, then my work has been done.
There you go.
Yeah.
And it's going to have tremendous impact on our audience. I'm sure that, numerous members of our audience are going to go out and get your book. And again, The Gift of Adversity by Marcus Aurelius Anderson. And I want to give you an opportunity here, Marcus, for you to let the listeners know how to find you, social media, your website, whatever else may be there. And then I'm going to turn it over to you to take over the closing practice.
Beautiful.
If you would,
Awesome.
kind of bring it home. And I'll turn it over to you for that.
I love that. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and it's been an honor to teach and your audience and learn from you gentlemen. And I have the utmost respect for you. I'm to a point now where I'm not on a podcast or involved with the people at all, unless I want to really support them and be a part of what they're doing. So
thank you.
The Gift of Adversity, you can find it on Audible. You can find it on Amazon. My TEDx talk is called The Gift of Adversity, and it's free. You can find it on YouTube. You can go to marcusaureliusanderson.com to learn all these things and more. Follow me on LinkedIn, please. If you follow me on Instagram, Twitter, all the things. My podcast is called Acta Non Verba. It's a Latin phrase that means actions, not words. And John was good enough to be a guest on there as well. And the goal is to get people to begin to take action, because that's where you learn what's really true, what you're really about, and how you can get there. But I cannot give that to you. I cannot tell you what your favorite beverage is. Only you know that, and that comes from experience. I can influence you, but you have to be the one that actually picks up the cup and does it. So for the presence that I want to give you, I want to go through some parachute breathing first to go from sympathetic to parasympathetic. And then I want you to close your eyes and then listen to my voice. And I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions and then we'll close it out. So for parachute breathing, it's a quick inhalation through the nose. And now extended exhalation through my mouth. So it's like. So I want us to do it together, and we're going to do it 3 times, because that's enough to ship us from sympathetic to parasympathetic. And this is a pretty good grounding maneuver. You can even do this if you're on a Zoom call. You can hit stop Zoom, step back, hit pause, or hit mute and breathe. If you have to step out to go to the restroom and get a breath of fresh air, you can do this then too. So this will serve you right now if you need it. So if you listen to everything else and you got nothing else, you got to apply that. So we're all going to be relaxed, deep breath. Eyes closed, and then we're going to do the inhalation. So we'll inhale, ready, and now exhale, extended. Deep inhalation, extended exhalation. Last time, quick inhale, deep extended exhalation. Now just keep your eyes closed and return back to nasal breathing, in through the nose, out through the mouth, at whatever cadence you feel is appropriate. Take a deep breath, listen to my voice, and understand. Ask yourself right now, what is an adversity that you're currently facing? Be very honest. You get out of this exercise what you put into it. So ask yourself right now, what is an adversity that you are currently facing? Take a deep breath. The next question is, in what way have you been complicit in allowing that to continue? Keep breathing. Finally, after reflecting on the adversity that you're facing, how you've been complicit in allowing it to continue, now you ask yourself, what is one step that I can take right now to stop this from continuing in my life? Keep breathing. This is something that I have people do whenever they brush their teeth at night to close out their day. They can reflect on this. This is a premeditation on adversity, if you will. And this helps you be very honest about what it is. And ask yourself one more thing. In the grand scheme of things, if there was a scale of 1 to 10 that I'm placing this adversity on, 10 being the most difficult thing I've ever encountered in my life, and 0 being heaven on earth, no bullshit, where does this adversity plot? And once you step back and look at it, you'll realize that it's not as big as you thought it was, and that you're much more powerful than you ever believed. One more deep breath. Deep exhalation. And there we go. Come back to your presence.
Brother, thank you for that. That was fantastic. Again, just as much as I needed the book and everything that you have in the book, I needed that message right there. So thank you for that. It's been such an honor being with you today. Thank you for honoring us and coming on our show.
Yeah.
And I'll turn it over to Will to wrap it up.
Yeah, just a big thank you, Marcus, and everyone listening out there. I really highly recommend, in case I didn't say it enough times already, to get this book. Or, I mean, I kind of like having the double whammy of you, Marcus. Like, the Audible that I can listen to while I'm driving, walking, transporting myself wherever I need to go, or even at the gym. But then also reading the book and kind of like absorbing more of this, but also using the book as a way to like get to that objective place we talked about, get to, allow the muse to come in. By Marcus has a lot of great questions, just like he had those few questions at the end of the podcast. So this is just a fantastic tool for anyone's transformation. Anybody, get off being a spectator, being surrounded by your mediocrity and all the people that keep you in that place, to take a step in the arena and start with just little small changes. And it's amazing how they can, stack up, and you can find yourself a little happier by living more of your purpose. And by doing so, you start changing yourself and you start changing the world, just like how we opened with Marcus's bio. So thank you, Marcus. Such a pleasure to have you here and sharing your wisdom with us and our audience today. And we'll get a chance to speak with you again. I look forward to it.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity.
Till next time. Peace, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Peace.
Joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.